Yes, you're live.
Right, well, welcome, Estates Committee. So there were a lot of papers. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read them, but if there are things that you want to go through in the meeting, then we'll take the time to do that, as we're no longer in a rush, as we thought. So start at 2150, apologies for absence, please, Lisa.
Councillor Clark and Councillor Davis.
Everyone happy to accept apologies? Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. 2151, declarations of interest. Any pecuniary interests or other interests of anything coming up on the agenda?
Do we have to declare an interest of the trustees of the QBA?
We all are.
Yeah, you will also don't think you need to.
Well, we do, but somehow it gets done in the office, I think.
Okay, right,
So
so take it as,
it's a blanket thing, but we always declare it.
Practical.
yeah.
2152, anybody expected?
Nope.
We'll take it as read then that we are alone. 2153 minutes, if you were here, Val and I were, so
Shall I propose them and you second them?
I'm quite happy with them, so yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that, and I take it you're not going to object.
No, I can still.
You can just, yeah.
No, that look fine to me.
So, yeah.
In absence.
They passed the quality test.
Well, there's always this thing that you couldn't vote unless you were in the room when the thing was, do you see what I mean? You can't vote for minutes from something you weren't at. You can't make a decision unless you're, but somehow or other that's been changed. I don't know.
I think it's in standing orders, but that's
Yeah, something
the
that came
bar
out from down
advises.
really,
Yeah, we did.
seems weird to me, to agree to something you weren't.
Yeah.
Mind you, I mean, I suppose because it's live, there's nothing to stop somebody that couldn't be present either watching it live, because I believe Ian Clark's watching it this evening, or watching it back later on. And then in theory, they have listened to it the same as anybody else, haven't they? So they could approve them, technically.
Yeah, but then they couldn't come up with something they disagreed with.
No,
Because
couldn't
obviously
object to
they've
anything,
been
yeah.
accepted previously.
Okay, so next we are on to 2154. The first report is the income expenditure reports, which we still get in great detail. At this stage, it seems to me, just a quarter through, really, that everything appears to be on track. So unless, Lisa, you've been asked to bring anything specific to
no.
our attention.
I was actually going to ask you about this because it is kind of doubled up, because
Yeah.
when I asked Paul for this information, it was a specific councillor that's no longer a councillor, and he said, although Paul had said this information is always presented at full council, that particular councillor wanted it presented again at this meeting. But I was going to see if you feel it's doubling up all the paperwork and all the stuff I'm sending to you, then if you don't wish it to be on the estates each time, then you can decide not to. It wasn't before, but
All right, I would prefer to see it.
okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I don't know whether Paul specifically sent us this version with the lines at 91 onwards, where he's got things with adjustments with question marks.
He did, yes, he did do one trying to tailor it to
So I wasn't quite
State.
sure what I was supposed to make of that.
I think just you mean this big one here where he's banded them together, because
No, sorry, I'm on something which is called Copy of 2021-22 Budget Level 4 Summary.
right, that's the full budget then. Do you get the whole budget thing?
And then at the bottom of that, I mean, that's then split April, May, June, so I'm looking at June, and at the bottom of that, there's some calculation which it looks as if he had never finished.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it,
No.
I just wondered if he'd sent any
I think the
comments
bits
to what it was.
that are important are having the full budget to hand, And then this one, the trial balance, where it tells you what we've spent so far, because then it just gives you the comparables, what we've got in the budget and what we've spent so far. I think they're the important bits really, because you're deciding on, like, for instance, there's 4 things on the trees tonight,
Yeah,
so it's handy to know how much we've got in the budget.
It is.
Yeah.
That's why I like to see it.
Okay,
It says received, so it doesn't sound as if we need to approve it. So
no, we just
unless
receive
anyone
it.
else has any questions, we'll say that's receipted. Okay, the update report for properties and open spaces. Now, in fact, I feel like almost everything has its own section subsequent to that, or am I looking at the wrong report? Is that the properties open spaces?
Yeah, that's
report?
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it should tally, it should go in order with
Yeah.
these bits.
So in and of itself, I didn't particularly feel we needed to look
Just
at it except to
received
say
it,
we
yeah.
received it. And any individual items we'll look at as we go down.
As we
the
go
agenda.
through.
When did this, was it in the day?
The properties, no, yes, it was 2 o'clock on the 21st of July.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky to do it in the day.
I know.
To be honest.
Yeah, I remember you saying that before.
I mean, I'm not against doing it without me being there, I'm just saying it's difficult for some to be available in the day.
It's like Ian said, that there's nothing stopping us doing another one, or a group of councillors going out when it suits them to have.
I mean, I'll be
a
able to do it on a Saturday, for example.
Yeah,
I know it's not good for staff, but, you know, a trail, I used to like the trail around.
It was enjoyable.
That's my
How
only thing.
many people did manage to go in the end?
3 councils.
3
See,
councillors.
that's not enough really. I mean, I know I couldn't Sunday, so I was Lake District.
It's partly a function of the committee being small.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that Val's got a lot of experience as well with the open spaces, haven't you?
In the olden days,
Well,
we
this
all
day, this
retired,
day.
you see, because it was to introduce the councillors to the properties we've got. And I do think that's very important, because most of them don't know.
No, I learned a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
and
it's just,
even when it's a decision about whether to make a bit of road one way, you can come at it from a number of different angles.
it's just a comment, that's all.
Yeah,
As I say, you know, if there's enough people there to do it, then that's fine.
Noted for next year, we'll try a time when we can get a better turnout, even if we have to ask the staff to do a Saturday perhaps, and invite more councillors.
I think so. I mean, I'm happy to propose that again next year and say that should it be part of people's, and yes, absolutely,
yeah.
that's what I
It
think.
really, it felt like an induction thing.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, it's the right word. Right, hub then, if everyone's happy to go on to 2155. Val, we went ahead without you, as you know.
Yes.
Lisa and I meeting the Baptist Church.
Yes,
And they're interested in, well, they've got a lot of things coming up, but they're not very far forward with many of them because they are appointing, I can't remember what they called her, someone new anyway to take on their sort of community group stuff. So at the moment, the only thing that really was going to fit with the hub would be the Mums and Tots group. And although Lisa and I were keen to give them an opportunity to come in, and I'd like to recommend that we do that, turns out that the morning that they want clashes with yoga, who wouldn't want a noisy group next door, and we felt they're there first.
yes, it is, yeah.
So, and they have they've had a long-term booking.
Yeah,
So Lisa and Rebecca have looked at the calendar, and we're going to ask them if they'd be interested in swapping to a different day, in order that we could facilitate them coming. And pretty well it was every other morning, although Zumba are here 3 mornings a week, But Lisa has come up with a cunning plan involving screens, which would mean they could still have their own bit, and Zumba could still access, if we have coffee machines anywhere, everyone would get to that point. So because the Zumba people always went to the hub afterwards, I know they did. So they must.
Well, the whole Zumba thing, you can hear it from across the car park.
Yeah.
It's more noisy far more noisy than yoga. I mean, I know the problem is that you were saying the other way round.
Yeah.
But
I know, yeah, so they may say no, but there's
Yeah,
once which left one morning.
Thursday morning, there's nothing on
Thursday
until
morning,
lunchtime.
Right.
Where we felt, just as a trial, we could say
I'm not against it.
exclusively,
I'm
that
not for
downstairs
trying.
area
Yeah.
is theirs.
You can go for that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing we want in there.
Just for the first instance, to half term, because they only go term time, because they don't want older children.
Yeah.
So they only do it term time. So that the older children are always in school. So we did check that carefully. And so as a first instance to half term, free of charge, just to see whether we can make it work.
Okay.
None of that guaranteed beyond there, everyone just gives it a go.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, that's great.
They may turn it down immediately because they want a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because Thursday morning, they do all their stuff, they like the market day.
Yeah.
So they like people to be going in.
Into number one.
So it may be that they don't want their staff up here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what about, say, drinks and things? Are they
They're completely self-sufficient,
fine? Right.
apart from our kettle and our toaster.
Yeah.
So it really is a super simple one to start
So,
with.
absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure, a very reliable group.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd support that.
So that's our recommendation, so we will draft a letter.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Val, you and I need to organise.
Absolutely, I'm here now, I've done my,
Right.
hopefully, I'm
Uh,
running about.
Is Emma still away, or
Sorry?
Emma still away?
No, she's in the office
Oh,
tomorrow, but then she's on annual leave Thursday and Friday.
Oh,
I
right.
think she's just using up some of her holiday. for
Yeah,
this.
she does seem to be in and out quite a lot. So we will
Yeah,
organise a meeting
Yeah.
Okey-doke.
to think about the sort of
Yeah.
wider use of the hub. So that's 2155, 2156, the rugby club. The very specific, there's a little bit in the report about the porter cabins. We happened to run into Graham Snelling when we were at the club, but Paul is, maybe you are, obviously very involved with the rugby club, so he knew all about these porter cabins. I think, are they actually putting in a letter?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
For permission, because I believe the land is
Sure.
Sandal Town Councils, and they are putting additional, buildings effectively on it. So we should get that letter. What is the Seaton's preparations? Just remind me, Lisa.
Just about the land, applying to land registry
Okay.
for confirmation
So nothing too
on the issue for
controversial.
that.
And the very specific issue is this thing of Western Power wanting to remove overhead power cables and site at the north end. Now, when we looked at it, did we feel, anyway, let's just make a decision. It really isn't of any impact on any land that Arundel Town Council own. In fact, it looked as if the post that they're talking about actually is the other side of the boundary, and it's only those sort of cables that they use for stabilising that actually came into the rugby field.
Right.
I mean, we're talking impact at Arundel Town Council tiny, and anyway, who wouldn't want, well, I don't know. I don't know who would vote against power cables going, but maybe some people would. I will give you the opportunity to vote against it. So that's what they need, permission from us to do this work.
We have to do it. I
If
mean,
they, yeah, they have to.
if they were wanting to plant in the middle of the pitch,
I agree, but it really is
So Lizzie,
marginal.
you're proposing it
Yes.
the day may come when they decide to put it underground, once it-
They may, well, they may, yeah.
Yeah,
which is why they're changing it anyway, they'll be putting it underground for the new housing estate.
Can someone second that and then
I'll
thank
okay.
you?
Those in favour?
Yes. All agreed. So that was Rugby Club, unless anyone's got anything else. Was that everything on the documents you sent us related to the Rugby Club? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, Fletton House. So this is, we've only today, I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it.
Yeah, I only got it today.
Yeah, I know. So the revised risk assessment. Now, because I only had a very short amount of time to look at it, I only looked at the bits in yellow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, that's all I've looked at.
Okay.
To be fair,
I assumed that's what it was.
Emma went through it in great detail with the chap that prepares them for us. So everything that's in there, and Rebecca has had a lot to do with all the risk assessment. So, and she's had a look at it. So, I think it's just a case of
It's a
accepting.
no-brainer, isn't
Yeah.
it? The experts have done it, we can't really object.
No, in order to open Fletton House, you know, more fully, then we have to do what we have to do at the minute. So,
There are some changes coming now, aren't there,
Yeah.
in terms of self-isolation and stuff.
but we've got people like the Bridge Club came back last night and things like that. So it was fairly imperative that we got something in place that was up to date.
Absolutely.
Whether we have to pay to have it redone again in light of new government guidelines is by the by, really, isn't it? It's evolving almost every day. So it's just accepting this one really as it stands at the minute.
Well, you
Most,
can get the nightclub with
I know.
the vaccination.
I know.
That's okay.
I know.
a lot of the change, the biggest changes were to do with test and trace and being pinged.
Yeah.
Bringing that into line with current guidelines or legislation, whichever it would be. And then just slight and tweaking how strict we need to be about meetings taking place here. So just, reducing how onerous it is to be here. I was sad to see they're not going to unlock the front door.
And that's why it
We're
was
still not going to unlock the front door.
To Fletton.
weird.
I'm not sure.
What's that about?
I don't know. I'm not really sure under whose advice that is, whether it's the health and safety guy. I know Emma talks to Adam French as well from Environmental Health. So there must be a reason. I'll have to find out from Emma. I'm not
Yeah,
quite
I wouldn't
sure.
mind confirmation about that because the legal status has changed and the legal status of the test and trace system is going to be relaxed as well in terms of proximity. And also in 2 weeks' time, self-isolation rules are going to change. So I don't want to diminish the safety of the building, but if this building is different to all the public buildings, then I think that's a bit, I would struggle with that personally.
Okay, so if I just ask the confirmation.
So my recommendation is that we accept it as it is.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you have an opportunity later to go away and read in particular the new bits in yellow, we can always come back to it and ask to have it back on the agenda.
Yeah.
But we'll just ask what the thinking behind having the door locked is in terms of this being a public building, and why the public can't have more access.
One of the back doors locked as well.
Yeah, there's no access apart from. How many times do we go up and down the stairs, Lisa?
Yeah.
We all wish we worked on the ground floor.
Yes. I can't see what that's.
I think, just to qualify, I'm not against health and safety.
No.
But I really don't, I struggle with inconsistency, that's all. Is the GP surgery now fully open?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think
Why
so.
don't
I don't.
these doors are why not even shutting?
I think it's all about
They've
the
actually,
environment, isn't it? So tonight we're in a room that's got good ventilation because we can, it's this time of year. But also just being consistent with what's going on in the general, because it's silly if you can't get into one building that you can walk around Tesco,
I know.
or massive Tesco in Peterborough without masks.
Yeah. Well, the library's open, although I think that I see them waiting outside. I suppose it's managing the people as they're coming in and out because it's a smallish space. I don't know about the doctor's surgery. I still keep seeing things about.
Well, yes, the door, they're not
They're
only
open.
are they open, they're not closed,
They're propped
as
open.
opposed to locked.
Yeah.
They're wide open.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay.
that there is very weak. They're only on Tuesday, aren't they? Every Monday I must have gone there.
So, I propose that we accept it and ask for clarification on that. I think it's a proposal, this one, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So second.
I'll second it.
And then I will read it in more detail just or I'll talk through with either Lisa or Emma how that fits with what we need to ask Anvil Baptist Church to do, because we need to have their letter. I'm not going to suggest we have an actual contract with them, but the letter will effectively form a contract, and one of the things will be, you need to be consistent with our risk assessment, so it seems only fair to draw to their attention anything. I am particularly interested in it at the moment. Plus they're working. So it's 21:57 unless anyone has anything else on Pletton House. 21:58 QVH. Hampton Coombs, currently preparing paperwork for registering the property. Fee paid, all documents submitted. What's this collapsed wall? I'm sorry if you've told us about it before.
Between number 9 West Street and the Queen Victoria Hall, the wall collapsed into the garden of 9 West Street. This was some time ago.
Right.
And the lady approached us to see if we would fund or, pay for some of the repairs, which we started looking into. But then when we spoke to the solicitor, he said, there's nothing in your deeds that say that boundary is anything to do with you.
All right.
But the lady was also saying the same, basically. And we basically said to her, unless we've got definitive proof that we are responsible for that wall, it's highly unlikely we'll agree to. And in response, I didn't get a response to that email, but I walked past a couple of weeks ago and there were builders in there repairing it. So I think she just either found out it was her responsibility or just decided to go ahead and do it. So that's done now.
Okay. Courthouse, nothing major there.
No.
Everything seems to be resolved. Right. The car park and toilets. I don't know if people have had an opportunity to read a long piece by Ian Clark on this. Well, long.
2 pages.
2 pages. Would anybody like it copied? I mean, I've got it on I can get it on my screen, so I can pass it to you if that's what you'd rather.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Do you want it called off in your
Unless it's gone off into my spam or something.
Well, it's part of documents. It was the only part of documents that I did print because, there's a lot there to think about. So on Lisa actually starts on the main report with the car park. So let's start with the car park. So going to the car parks, it did seem to the 3 of us who were able to go that we should be recommending that the council spend some money to tidy up and remark and just, make them look a bit nicer. And improve, in particular, the long-term car park beyond the Jones Strong Centre, to improve the amount of, that would actually improve the amount of space available for parking there. So I don't think we've got quotes on that yet, have we?
No.
Well, that's sort of redesigned the way they're allotted, you mean?
Well, what's happened is there's a lot of undergrowth that's come in, which means that
That's stopping people from using the space. I was going to say,
yeah. Generally speaking, although the spaces aren't always very well marked, everyone was parked very tightly. In both.
I mean, our men are supposed to look after that anyway, aren't they? We shouldn't have to tell them all the time to go and tidy the car park up.
No, they've just done some work on the drill hall on that lavatoria that was growing out of control and everything. They've just tackled all of that. But one of the main problems is all the roots coming up through the tarmac. That's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
Now, I believe there are some thoughts around, it is a leased space, and that lease, there's no guarantee at all. In fact, I think it might be that it's unlikely to be renewed, but you can't know.
Mm.
However, the length of time remaining on the lease was estimated at 9 years.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's still long enough that making a difference now is worth it, it seems to me. As long as we're not going to refurbish the whole thing and get it retarmacked, and we're not going to go to those lengths, but to just make some of those sort of almost surface level changes to improve it, I thought that there was merit in doing that. I'm just going to find Ian's piece, so I'll just give me 2.
Do you want this one?
No. Okay, so car parks. So his thoughts beyond. So this is going beyond that. Actually, can I make? So on car parks and spending, are we making a recommendation to the full council that they look at costs, or do we ask you to look at costs and then they go to the full council of doing some work in those car parks?
It doesn't really matter, although because they've asked about it before and then it got shelved, it might be best to go back to full council and ask them if they're all in
Because we haven't
agreement
really
with an
got
So
idea.
we would need to get.
We
some
haven't
votes.
extended
Yeah.
the legal power.
I think it's beyond a small bit of.
It is, yeah.
It is, yeah. So I will ask Lisa, my recommendation is we ask Lisa to look again at the costs of having the bays marked in both the drill hall, I can still call it, and the long-term car park. Get a quote on that, or a couple of quotes on that.
Both long-term car parks.
Both
Yeah.
long-term car
Yeah.
parks. Ask our maintenance team to do as much as they can to clear foliage from, in particular, the long-term car park at the James Strong Centre. And then see if, I don't know, how could we look at that stuff with the roots? Is there anything that can be done? Or
Yeah, I think you'd have to get a tarmac specialist in, wouldn't you? I think it's
How about getting the opinion of the tree person from the council first?
Yeah, could do.
Because that would be about cutting roots back and even maybe getting permission to remove the trees if it's, I think it's a particular kind of tree that has very superficial roots.
Yeah.
I seem to remember Paul and Ian seemed to think it was mostly stuff which is self-seeded
Seeded,
almost,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't
Well,
look in any way
We
managed.
don't, no, it's not.
It just looks a mess.
Let's get the tree man to
Okay,
because we get that
start
free.
there. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Free.
Yeah, I'll ask them if they've got any advice on what we might do, just to improve the amount of space.
I mean, I think from things that I've heard before, you don't always have to have a tree removed. You can get something called a root barrier, I think, can't
Yes,
you? That you
yeah,
plant
you can.
underground and it stops them.
Oh, right.
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've heard one of the tree surgeons talk about that in the past. So it might be a case of not having to remove trees, but
Yeah.
just keeping them contained so they don't
Yeah.
damage the tarmac further.
Hmm.
Okay.
And maybe, I think Nobby did have some opinions when we were there as to whether any of that could be salvaged, relatively easily salvaged with the root damage that's already there, or whether we just have to say, well, if you end up parking there, you end up parking there. I don't think anyone's going to damage their car.
No,
It's not that bad.
no.
What's, as a matter of interest, what's the situation with regard to the company that own the recycling unit parking their cars in there? Are they all right now, and the other people from the business park, as it were?
Fairline.
Fairline.
They're all still using it
Yeah.
regularly because it's just easier. I mean, we've had lots of conversations with the Fairline. One of the chaps there, in fact, I think, I can't remember whether it was Tony Robinson or Jerry that I'd had a meeting with him, and he
Well,
was
they do,
quite
yes,
keen on
Jerry did.
introducing barriers or something.
Yeah.
And,
I think we're going to have to
mm,
have car height barriers
mm.
and keep some of them.
But again, it's one of those things that it got to a certain point and then nothing happens,
Nothing
and it
happens.
sort of gets forgotten, kind of thing. So.
So Ian, it seems, would like to open a discussion on car parks being free. That's what I read into his comments here. Number 2, Andrew Town Council will aim to keep the Andrew car park, I think that is, freely open for as long as it can afford to do so. My opinion on this is we should be asking people to pay for parking. So I'm further the other way on that. I don't understand why parking is free here.
I can tell you if you want to know.
Well, it's because the council has decided it is, yeah.
But they didn't decide it for no reason.
Comment.
2 things, main things at the time, which I think certainly one still applies,
Mhm.
and that is that collecting money would be
Yeah.
extremely expensive.
And I appreciate that's
And
something
my
to consider.
brother-in-law was in charge of all the parking at the hospitals in Nottingham, and said, don't go down the route of charging. You'll regret it. Secondly, the district council had a policy at the time that in all the towns in the district, East Northants, would be free, because otherwise people would not bother to go and shop in the towns. It was felt very strongly that the only way you could keep customers would be to provide free parking. They were the 2 main reasons. I think both of which have quite a lot to say.
I do agree. I mean, I have no idea how much it costs to enforce parking charges, of course.
It's the collecting money, it's not, it's the actual collection of the money which is expensive.
Well, that must go hand in hand with enforcement.
Well, it does as well,
Yeah, so
But you could
whichever
have,
company you
you
have,
could have
to do it for you.
enforcement in there that is a person
Yeah, but
to maintain the turnover of the vehicles.
most towns now that I go to have these ones where you phone. It's a phone system or an app, so they do it for you. But I don't know how much that costs. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
my opinion is people should pay to park, but I don't expect to be in the majority on that. So whether we think there's any value in continuing to discuss Andover County Council will aim to keep the Andover car parks free open for as long as they can afford to do so. To me, that doesn't really get us anywhere.
I suppose it depends what you're trying to do by
Yeah.
charging. So charging is really about rationing, I would say, and managing flows. So I'm not sure how it would go down if we charged, depending on where we charged. I could see people, the long stay, maybe, I think in the marketplace, it's been a bit weird the last 18 months because of lockdown, but But I think the changes that were made back with the problem in Amber's, there's not enough car parking capacity.
Yeah.
That's the real problem.
But that car park does that long-term car park ever get full? Beyond the Jones Strong Centre?
I don't think I've ever seen it completely rammed full.
No, no.
So
Yeah,
there
it
isn't
does,
parking.
we used to have a
So there isn't
coach.
parking.
But there's,
Several of the organisations that I belong to have tried to use it as a place to assemble, to get their coach to go to wherever.
Yeah.
And we've never been able to manage it because there's never been enough spaces for people to park their cars on the long term. You're going to be out of hours for 2 hours.
Yeah.
There are never enough spaces.
I think there is probably a bit of psychology in this, but I don't know. I don't think it's a privilege of living here, to be honest. I don't agree with the way it's written. I don't agree with APNR either. I think you just have to make a solid policy decision as a council.
Yeah.
That are we going to, if we charge, then we charge, and if we're not going to charge, we don't. But the issue is nothing, to me, the issue is one piece of extra, little bit of capacity somewhere. Because what people want to do is park in the marketplace, really.
But you're not going to be able to change that, Paul, so.
No, there's no way of changing that. The co-op car park is very, very regularly used because it's adjacent to the town centre.
Yeah.
So the difference is how to get people to park a bit further away.
It is.
Mm.
And it's always been the thing. I'm not sure that. I think when I think about it, I don't know whether there is maybe enough car parking capacity. It was Churn that we had a problem with in the marketplace. That seems to have been resolved in the last 2 or 3 years. People do come, stay, and then go. Because I park in there overnight because I live there.
Right.
I think it just needs to be looked at a bit more objectively, probably, really. What is the problem?
Yeah.
Because if you ask people, they'll all say it's car parking. Well, I'm not always sure that you're. I agree with you that I always manage to get a space.
Yeah. I don't know why there's a perception that there's not enough parking. Ian was certainly on the view, you know, he was looking for land as we were walking around where he could put an extra car park. And I'm thinking, I don't know.
Well, I shouldn't, I think we should.
On what evidence?
Well, you can only judge it on one thing unless Gwen and I once did a survey of the car park, the co-op, for instance. And interestingly, the average stay was 2 hours, which is what we allow anyway. Interestingly, on any given hour. But it's usually pretty full.
But there are other car parks that aren't full.
But then, yes, people don't want to go away from where the centre of the
There's
town
no
is.
possibility of freeing land in this sweet spot of
Absolutely.
100 metres
I
from the
agree.
co-op.
No, that's
Yeah.
right. I think that's absolutely right. I think
And in fact,
that has to
people
be
walk in
accepted.
from the Waitrose now, don't they? Because they
Yeah, but you
they're
see,
free.
Waitrose they actually technically don't allow it.
I know, technically, but I've never known.
Well, they've only got to clamp down again,
Yeah.
which they did in Rushton. And they're charging Rushton now, yeah.
I mean,
So they don't even charge.
you see when the wardens come into parts of the marketplace, which is becoming a bit more frequent now, because obviously things are changing. You do see people observing the rules, but I think that space works really well. I don't think that's a problem.
No,
I think the Churn works really well. You're right, the co-op is the next decent site. If you could build 30% extra on that,
yeah.
just like in the hospital car park, right, it's sorted the problem out completely. But we can't, you're right, we're landlocked. There's no way we can do that.
And you've again said solve the problem, and I don't think we've proved there is a problem.
No, maybe you're right. Or the perception of a
The
problem.
perception of the problem, and the problem as I see it is people don't want to walk more than 200 metres.
No.
That's the
Actually, if you look at
And
where
is that
most people-
really, a council's responsibility to
Absolutely.
solve that?
And a lot of people do live within a certain proximity of the marketplace, actually. That was the whole thing about the way that we
Yes.
wanted to do housing, keep it close.
Yeah,
Because we were thinking about strange things like electric buggies just going around picking people
yeah,
up.
yeah.
And, I know that sounds a bit weird, but coming,
No, it
dropping,
doesn't
being
at
dropped
all.
off, doing
Absolutely.
a Tesco Express or a coffee or a co-op shop,
Yeah.
getting back on the electric car and going up to Blackthorn Road, problem solved, you don't need cars.
It's lovely, yeah. And with the section 106 money being designated for transport, there is an opportunity to look at that again.
All sorts,
Yeah. And maybe that is how you start to address the perception that there isn't enough parking.
I think it's phrasing the problem to the transport group. That's
Yeah.
What is the problem?
I think that needs defining.
Yeah, I mean, I know the town is going to grow, but I don't know
Yeah.
the direct, because I'm not an expert on what the direct impact of.
And the need for parking will grow because the housing being built is on the outskirts of the town.
Put another shop further out, don't you? That's
Yeah.
what would have happened in the old days.
Yeah.
That's what you did, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not, personally, I can't recommend that we adopt that number 2, Anfield Town Council, but I think that we should continue to have it something that we're talking about, and it seems to me that the transport
Yeah.
survey, or whatever they're going to call it, it should be part of the remit for that. Is the transport survey full council responsibility there, not this one, is it? Transport, I think it's
I think
full
it's a
council.
separate, yeah,
Yeah, there's a little group.
it's a little group, isn't it, a working party.
As we have car parking, can we recommend to the transport group that they definitely include,
Look at parking.
yeah, try to understand whether there's an actual problem or just a perceived problem. Then, so on parking, we've given you enough instructions there, Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And then, for some reason, car parks and toilets always get amalgamated. It's the weirdest thing.
They're usually together.
Again, this piece from Ian includes some beautiful graphics. And I think we've already established that public toilets are something that we want to continue to fund, and I'm much more in favour of those being free in car parking. So I don't even disagree with that.
You've got to, if you're going to have festivals and stuff, you've got to have a toilet.
So it's about then. How far did we get with getting quotes on the work
Well, it's
needed?
funny that Ian's done this actually, because all of the people I spoke to, it was too up in the air for them. They said we can put some. One of them said, I've got nothing back from any of them. One of them
Right.
said he'll put two plans together. One a straight like refurb of what we've got,
Yeah,
and then one where we make the workings at the back of the toilet, and we just have three
unisex.
unisex toilets at the front, and that's what he was going to quote me for, which I've still not got.
Mm.
But the others have said we need more clear guidance of what you want before
Okay.
we can quote you. Yes, they can quote for a straight like refurb, no problem. But if we do, they think we need to think about it more carefully. And I think somebody even suggested as well to actually put it out to the town, because one person I said about the unisex toilets, that definitely won't work in Arundel. Then somebody else said it would be brilliant. So
If
again,
they're all unisex, they bloody well have to work.
yeah,
Pardon me.
yeah.
Ask them when they need the
There won't be
toilet.
That's it. They won't care if it's clean at the end of the
If
day.
you're desperate to go, you have to.
So I think we need to give them more detail. I think that's why they're sort of dragging their heels in submitting quotes, because I've spoken to 3 different companies. One that is a toilet company,
Yeah.
specialises in that one thing, and then 2 others that are builders, but all of them have said they could do with a little bit more detail, really. So I think it needs to be thought of.
Do we think there's any merit in Ian's suggestion here that building or that plot there becomes a mix of toilets and something else?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Is there a need or desire for a bigger revamp? Is it worth looking at going unisex on one side of the building and opening the other up as a council centre space that pop-up shops, local caterers, I think he means, he's put craters, could hire for a small charge for a day. People might want to use it on market days.
So I'm confused. Where is this plot?
Our public toilet.
Yeah. So here, he's thinking of our toilets, the plot that our toilets are on.
Well, that's village apart from a few bushes.
Yes, I didn't really see how even moving to unisex, you would really free up any space. And I also do question how much space this council already has. Do we really need any additional hiring space to hire?
No, I don't think we do.
I'll go for a decent toilet.
Toilets.
Yeah, just toilets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go, there's one decision.
There isn't room for anything else.
I think that might have come
Remains at a
from,
toilet block.
because remember the Clean for Shore who clean it
I know
offered
they
to buy it back from us for a nominal amount,
Yeah,
and then completely revamp it for us. But take part of it that faces the car park and have it as a shop for themselves for selling their cleaning products and stuff, which the council didn't want to do that at all. So, yeah.
Let's just go for decent toilets.
Yeah.
and be done with it.
So I think that's the thing, and if how do people feel about unisex?
Sorry?
I got the opinion, generally speaking, we are the representatives, we've been voted to be the representatives, to keep going out and asking the people again every time on every decision. They've already made their decision that they're happy for us to be making those decisions on their behalf. Big things like the transport survey, fine. Little things like what the toilet provision is, not so fine.
Mm.
I just think
Can
we
we
do
not
unisex.
make a decision on unisex?
Yeah, because you know, I don't.
I'm happy that we recommend it goes to the full council if you think there's
If
something.
you're going a coffee tavern for a coffee,
Yeah,
there is a ladies and a gents, but
Yeah.
the gents is down the yard.
I think
But in most
unisex-
other places,
That's right. If you go to, I went to Northern Ireland a week ago, and we went into a
Just have a toilet.
similar town like this, and there were just 3 unisex
Yeah.
bays or 4 in similar size.
Mm.
And no one's bothered because actually most people just need to go in, do what they need to do, and then come out.
Yeah.
And
They're
it's
quite
all very
happy.
private. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not as
Exactly.
if it's not a political
No.
thing or a modern thing. It's just
No.
a better use of space.
Yeah.
It surely is, I think such a.
well, if we're moving, as we seem to be, into everybody's some kind of sex, but no particular one,
I think gender is what we're looking for.
you might have just as well be the crowd.
That's going to go viral.
Yeah. I think it's nice as well because with the unisex ones, you're not using a shared basin in a communal room. You're in your own room, so you do what you need to do, wash your hands,
Oh,
and
you
you're
have
gone.
a basin in the loop,
Yeah, yeah,
and they're all separated off,
Yes,
aren't they?
yeah.
You don't need rows of urinals
No.
anymore.
No.
No.
Yeah, let's
Definitely
go
not,
in.
definitely not. Definitely not.
Let's go
Multi-sex.
multi-sex.
This is not France.
Multi-sex.
Multi-sex.
multi-sex, not unisex.
Second one. As long as they're nice, I think.
Yes.
Yes, clean,
Bundled
clean
through,
and fresh.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where the energy should be, making them, isn't it?
Yes.
So am I going to put that you are proposing that we take it to full council and say that we think the best way, having considered all the evidence, is to go unisex?
No, we're further ahead than that.
Right.
We're deciding, I think, my recommendation for the proposal is we ask Lisa to get quotes to refurbish that toilet block to a set of unisex cubicles.
Okay.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah, we made it.
When we have those quotes, it'll obviously then go to full council.
Yeah.
If anyone has any objections there?
No, that's
We
perfect.
agree.
Right. So Liz is
Quite right.
proposing, who would like to second it?
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
And I would like, when you have the quote, the points that Ian makes about low water, low energy, timed lights,
Yeah.
etc. I'm sure those sort of things are probably standard
Standard
these
now,
days,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
worth saying they are
Yeah.
things we will be looking for, perhaps. Please.
Okay. Yep. Okie dokie.
That was toilets and car parks, unless anyone has anything else, or there was anything else on documents about that, but I don't think so.
No.
I mean, he's got a little bit on maps here, but I think we'll talk about maps and signage elsewhere. I'm a big supporter of those signs at car parks telling you where you are and where other
Yes,
things
Yeah,
are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do think that's something that we want to be investigating.
And the more we want to try and encourage tourism even.
Yeah, I'm
She's
alive,
definitely-
yeah.
Nothing going on there.
It's
It's gonna be the new, what's that lady's name that's
And
famous?
if we want, because we looked at there was some sign that pointed to the long-term car park, or something that wasn't even there anymore. I don't remember now quite what it was. I think it was on the corner of St. Eliza's Street.
Lane.
Lane, right, oh my goodness, and so I think there's a need to just be looking at that, but if you want to encourage people to go a little bit further out to park, to then give them some good signage of, you're only 200 metres from the co-op, even then you've parked here.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
think
it's
the
kind of
point
using
you've made in
confidence.
a way is that people don't know that there's other parking.
Yeah,
I think there's a bit of that,
Yeah.
yeah, so that kind of lovely topographical map of Amble, with the things that we'd like to bring people's attention to, judiciously placed around the town, surely can only be to the good, but I'm not sure we want to take that on today as well. Because we've got plenty of other things to be looking at, but let's keep that ongoing, please, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
QVH, I don't think there was anything very much. Oh,
Somebody at the door.
That'd be something for the planning committee.
oh yes.
Don't pay you any money.
Oh,
I know David Chappell definitely knows it's not on, because he agreed it, so who else is on?
well, I'm on planning. I have to say, I looked at my messages tonight, I couldn't see anything that said it was cancelled.
Well, we know,
I know Lisa said she sent a message, but
and you guy, his name I forgot again, he's too ill to come, so that's definitely not him. QVH. Can't see anything. Oh, there it is. I think that's, oh no, we've done QVH actually. What else? So I think, can we all agree 58 and 59 we covered when we were looking through the original report before we got, because I was doing it in the order of Lisa's report, and then I realised that she's actually got the agenda in a slightly, oh no, it's me, I'm so sorry, we're on 61. It's nothing. Oh, someone sent me a link today to a new skateboard park in Bourne, apparently. Oh, I thought she knew this. They're getting a £100,000 grant from Sport England.
Blimey.
They have got to raise some funds of their own. So Sport England are giving 100,000. The local fundraiser has raised 183,000,
That's amazing.
and there's still 144,000 to fund.
they are very expensive.
So that is a lot of money, isn't it?
And the problem is, it's easier probably to get funding for a new project than it is to repair an old one.
Yeah, always, yeah.
Did you see the stuff on the television about Corby and the
Yeah, that was the BMX lake.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
BMX is the thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Two of them got gold medals.
Yeah, it's fantastic, yeah, it was really,
Yeah.
and they'll all be.
We had them here one year, didn't we?
Yeah.
For one of the, we had them up at, that we had, they have a sort of travelling one and they came.
Oh, right.
We had it in Anvil.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Where did they put it? On the recreation ground?
Put it up, no, we had it up, New Street.
Sorry.
That's right, yeah.
You assumed it was the planning committee.
It was
then.
Tony. I said to him, I emailed you and so did David. He said, I've not got it.
No, I didn't get, I'm sure I didn't get it. Well, I hadn't got it when I last looked, which was,
He said he thought he saw it when he was out picking up on his phone, and then when he got home and checked on his laptop, he'd not got anything. I said, well, I know both David and I emailed you. So I don't know what's happened there. Right.
So we're now on to 2161, the recreation ground, skateboard and basketball courts. There's a lot of big money items here. On the skate park refurb, that's ongoing, getting the quotes for that actually, so I don't think we need to think about that anymore at the
No.
moment, unless anyone has any other questions they want answered. So, but we are asked to, are we able to decide on the basketball courts, or does that have to?
Well, I think when we did the tour, didn't we all agree that we were going to go for option 1, which was
We did,
The
however,
general
I feel
refurb.
that this is the constituted decision-making
Yeah, what was
group, so it
what
has to
were
be
the
here.
options then?
So,
Oh, okay, haven't we?
no, you've got it, so that's.
So,
Oh, so option 1 was the cheapest, Val, which is just to, if you can picture a basketball hoop, it has a backboard.
yeah,
So just to replace that, wasn't it? In fact, is that all really? And do a little bit of refurbishment of the tarmac.
to fill the
tarmac.
tarmacking, re-white line it, de-weed it and give it a good clean. So
this
that's
was minimum.
2645 is option 1 for doing the
Right.
research. Then it goes up to 53 for a bigger fencing at the back.
None of us had any enthusiasm for fencing in the middle of, which
No,
effectively
no,
cuts down the recreation.
absolutely.
So that's definitely
And
out.
you'd get muddy paths growing because people would only be able to approach in one direction.
So I think then that's our recommendation, that we go with option 1, but we're allowed to agree the design, aren't we? Isn't
There is
backboards?
fencing in that one. I thought you were happy to have the 5 metres by 4 metres, so it's
Oh,
not
just a
too,
small
a
amount.
smaller one, so it's literally immediately behind the goal area, but it doesn't obstruct any other movement for the
Right.
fair or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just gives them something to.
Not have to collect the ball every single time.
Yeah, I can cope with that.
But it's obviously above our. So it was tonight. Really, was just to finally agree that we agree with option 1, and then to pass it to full council for approval for that particular cost.
But if you haven't seen the designs, Val, I can show you them.
Is it not just a sort of rectangle?
Yeah, I've got them all.
Oh,
It's got the logo on it then.
yeah, they've all got the logo, our logo on.
How are they?
I like the
Oh, you're talking about the backboard?
Yeah, the
I like
back.
the black, the blue
Yeah, because that's a
background.
different cost. That's the 655 cost for the and the
No, that's a
78.
smaller one.
That's the one we're going for. Yeah.
Job done.
Now you've got to just, you've got those.
And then what we wanted to do is this
No, I was
backboard
looking at
here.
that.
Yeah, no, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one, the small one.
Right.
But what we're going to do is have our town logo
Yeah.
printed on it.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do is decide which of those designs you like. Because our very talented Rebecca
Which
came up
of
with.
I like the blue.
I like the blue because it goes with our
This
logo on
I'm
everything.
more relaxed.
This one.
Yeah,
I like
just
that.
the blue and white one, I think is the.
Yeah, fine. Job done.
I'm relaxed about this.
Although
As long as it's got the logo, because
I
we're
prefer that one personally,
Yeah.
above that, but it's still in the colours, but it's less fussy.
Yes, actually, I quite like that
That's
one.
fine.
Still
It
makes
does look a
it
bit
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
ice cream, but from a distance, an ice cream cone.
I just wondered whether that one was a bit more funky for the kind of kids and teenagers that are doing it, but I don't know.
You want these
I don't
or
like the word
not?
basketball. I'm happy with the graphic, I just don't like the.
It's good actually because there's that new version of basketball that did it, where they're all at one end.
I know!
Stop.
That is
dominance.
amazing.
It is actually, because that's how you play 1-on-1, wasn't
Yeah,
it? So
yeah,
it's quite a good idea.
Yeah, I like
The timing's all critical.
Okay, so that's additional.
Yeah.
It should all just go as one, I think, and just ask for council, that's the total
Yeah.
spend to refurb the basketball court, so our proposal is that, or that's the recommendation to go to now.
Okay. Actually, then you can get the rest of their take on which one of these they like, can't we?
No.
No?
We don't do anything like that. Make a decision.
So we're just saying to them it's that one. You recommend that one, Liz, yeah?
Here all night, you
Let's
don't
get
have
to
to.
the subcommittee, that's what we have to do.
Exactly,
exactly.
thank you, Val.
Okay, cool. I like it a lot.
So going on to 216102, I brought to people's attention on the tour the rather odd graffiti board, which I have only ever seen used as a toilet. Because I used to walk my dog there all the time, so I was there a lot, and I think it was probably that brought it to my attention, because she loved that area. Not in a good way, people.
Because it's
Not in a good
not
way.
interesting.
So my recommendation is it's taken out. I'm absolutely certain it's not used for anything else. Because they're skateboarding, there's no toilet facility there.
I mean, it was put there because there was apparently a huge need for it.
Well, there was a spate of graffiti.
Yes,
Was there?
on the
It was quite bad
Yeah.
at the time.
swearing and unpleasant graffiti.
Oh, it's to do with the police as
Aye,
well, that was it. There was stuff about the police.
Yes,
Because the police were quite visible down there for a while, about 5, 6, 7 years ago.
yeah, yes.
I'm not sure that it's
Now you remind
probably,
me.
I don't think it's
And the
probably.
graffiti, even on the skateboard elements,
Yeah.
really appalling.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. They moved ramps and put,
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But luckily,
Since we've died down then, because since I've been
Well, maybe it did its trick at the time.
Well, I must admit, there has been a small amount of graffiti to the new half pipe. So they've obviously
Has there
forgotten
already?
about the purpose of that
The
wall being
wall,
there
yeah.
and thought there's something nice, new and shiny. But this touch wood, there's only been 2 incidents of it so far. So,
I
yeah.
think if it's becoming a bit pointless.
scanty.
Just, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pointless.
But now you remind me that was the reason.
Yeah, it was. But I think that's
I
fine.
remember it was a very important reason,
Yeah.
because we debated about it.
Yeah. And maybe it wasn't then, there weren't so many trees around it and what have you, because what it's become is a very private area, if you like, but in a public space, and it's just unpleasant.
Can I just mention that I heard the word weeding and things from the reg. What do our men do if they're not doing the things that they should be doing?
Well, they are doing the things they should be doing, but their list of things they should be doing has grown over the years because apparently their job description has morphed
Right.
ridiculously over the last, 5, 10
So we've
years.
acquired lots more bits
Yes.
of green space, haven't we?
Well, it's not just that they were taken on, apparently their job description basically describes outdoor duties like the grass mowing only. So there's nothing in there that says about any of
Oh,
the
I see.
internal jobs that we get them to do. So I thought that was their role. So I'd be like, John, can you come and put a new lock on such and
Actually,
such? Can
we
you
need
come
to
and
look
do
at the
this? And if you
job
like,
description again.
yeah, we do.
Actually,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Emma's on that actually. But so they are getting more and more duties all the time. And obviously that's one of the reasons we've had to pay to have the cemetery done, because it used to be the community payback and
Yeah.
they've not come back, and there's
That's
no word
right.
of them coming back at the moment. And there's no way that
Sure,
John,
I mean, that's
there's no
it.
way they could get it all done. So
Right.
they are doing, but in order to maintain stuff that needs doing regularly, obviously other bits get left.
Yeah.
So things like the car park, and stuff like that, it does,
not getting done.
yeah.
Okay, we need to look at the job description.
Mm.
Could we perhaps recommend to council that we?
Well, the personnel committee, presumably, isn't it?
Actually, yeah. Yeah. I'll have a word with Emma because I think she was talking about it anyway, going through it again. What's that on update?
Do you think removing that graffiti wall will require a company, or do you think that is something that Nobby and his?
I don't know what it's made of. What's it actually made of? Is it metal or is it brick or?
I think it's.
I've never been there.
Yeah, concrete with some kind of covering, one of those graffiti covering paints or whatever.
I'll have to ask them. I'll meet Nobby down
Oh,
there.
yeah, so we'll leave you to, that's what we'd like. If it would be ridiculously expensive,
It might be a good idea just to see. I know we've said that we make the decisions, but it was quite a big issue at the time.
Yeah, I didn't realise,
Yeah, perhaps ask other council members what they
Yeah.
think.
Well, if we get as
They
far
ought to
as
be-
finding out
they ought
what
to
to be involved in
Okay.
taking
They need
out.
to be aware of the problem.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, thank you everyone, that's 61 finished, so 62. Do we need, 01, what did you have in mind when you wrote that?
Well, normally on something like that, I'd do a separate report on what we spoke about when we did the tour,
Yeah,
but I just didn't think it was worth it. I thought we may as well, because it's all contained in here, I may as well just merge it in with this.
yeah.
So I mean, a lot of the stuff we talked about was the wildflower areas, wasn't it? Places for additional
Yeah.
trees and that sort of thing, so it's
Yeah.
just
I
contained
think everything,
within here.
yeah, that's what I think, that we've got it elsewhere on the agenda.
I'm not a fan of doing reports for the sake of doing reports, to be fair.
Okay, so unless anyone has any questions on 01, we'll say that's done and move on to 02. Green spaces, wildflowers and wilding, and approving locations for trial areas. So this is where, you know, if you had been with us, you may well have had opinions, but I don't think it's tremendously controversial where you might try some wildflowers.
I just got a comment because we used to have a thing about putting bushes in car parks, do you remember? And they were just a problem because they actually interfered with vision. You couldn't see everything that was happening in the car parks. And so again, nice though it is to have more trees and bushes and stuff, you actually do have to think very, very carefully about what you might be obscuring.
Well, we have thought about that, because the initial suggestion with that strip that seems to be doing okay now in the rec, somebody had suggested all the way around the boundary of the rec, and then of course somebody said that corner is notoriously bad anyway, so we can't have anything.
Absolutely, I've had
So
that
we're-
came up.
we're-
Is that the
And it was the
point?
same with trees, wasn't it? We were
Yeah.
looking very carefully about it being away from buildings,
Yeah.
away from any of the main roads and everything, so, I
Which
think,
is why there are so few places that we can recommend
Yeah.
for trees.
Absolutely.
It was rather sad in a
Yeah.
way.
It is.
There's all these little bits and pieces of land, but once you put a tree or 2 or 3 trees on it, you know, you've actually lost what it was there for as an open space.
That's right.
So I particularly liked, we went to St Christopher's Drive, piece of land I never even knew existed. The green space there, this tiny little playground, and then behind that is a piece of green, just grass, as it is at the moment. And we thought there might be good to just do some wildflower trials as much as anything. Honestly, it won't have any impact
No.
on anything apart from the people of St Christopher's Drive won't something you to look at, but just to trial what really works well. I know that Ian's very keen on this yellow rattle being
Yeah.
mixed into grass and seeing what that does.
Yeah, I've got massive that in my garden.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up.
the other place as well, which I thought was a good idea, was that, like Coppy's little bit that couple wanted to buy in Corn Close. We were saying about clearing it out a little bit, weren't we, tidying it up and maybe getting some wildflowers that don't mind shade.
Yeah.
That'd be quite nice there, because that wouldn't affect
And
anybody.
Nolly
you know.
was keen on those pathway up on the rock, when we were up at Rockingham Hills, I think. There was a long pathway past quite a big piece
Yes,
of green.
that's right, yeah.
And at the moment, it's basically a nettle bank.
Yeah.
You know it, right? Okay. And he thought that would be a great place to try some wildflowers. I mean, it wouldn't change in a way the nature of anything,
Yeah.
apart from to make it more attractive.
No.
But it's enormous.
It is, it's a long,
Yeah,
it's that bit there,
Yeah.
so it backs onto Sons Close. So it's just that long strip all the way along there, is just full of nettles up, and it is up
But
like a bank, isn't it?
Lisa and Nobby assured me that they've got half a ton of wildflower seed.
Well, we've got a fair bit.
But, you know, it's not going to involve necessarily a big extra cost because there's already wildflower seed available. So it was really just where to
Sounds okay.
So I think all the wildflower places,
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that are pretty non-controversial. Trees, you know, there is more to think about, and we did struggle to find enough places.
You see, when you think about it, corners near roundabouts, you know, where there are triangles of land, But if you grow stuff that's too high, you can't see the road, you've lost your vision.
So one of the places was Creed Road, Wentworth Drive, 2 trees. It's in that piece of ground that we just talked about where the nettle bank is. There is a big green space there, and I think it's really important that it stays as a big green space for children to play football on. But there is an opportunity towards the back for a couple more trees, which would just form really part of the backdrop. So there'd be those. Where else did you come up with, Lisa? You sent me all these maps.
I lost my list. You remember it? Because I said to Ian, I sent Ian an email and said, have I remembered everywhere? Blank.
Somewhere. I've seen it somewhere in this one. I love the mod stuff, honestly. Oh, here, that's one. Certainly, again, going back to that piece of land at St Christopher's Drive, there's actually too many trees there. So some are really struggling because others have grown faster and they're being starved of light. So there were some there that we thought needed thinning out, and we actually attracted a bit of a crowd there. And luckily, everyone was in agreement. I mean, it's fairly obvious that the trees are struggling, and you might as well give the others the best possible chance to be
So in
successful.
Philip Rose has planted probably a dozen trees in his field. Philip Rose, if you go down off South Road, down Russetford Road, as if you go to my house, I would turn left. He's got the ford, and then all those fields all the way along the river are his, and all the way to the
I
bypass.
saw some trees.
And he's planted groups of trees. So it's not that nobody's planting any trees, and I don't really see that having 3 conker trees is, I'm putting them up in my garden all the time. And oak trees, so if anybody wants some baby oak trees, they're most welcome.
We definitely, so I remember that. I remember wanting to take out some of those trees at St Christopher's Drive. We possibly found one spot at the recreation ground. But the biggest area was at the rugby club, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they're going to try and site, was it 20 trees?
Yeah,
somewhere.
So they're going to, or we are going to talk, someone was going to talk to the rugby club about how we might be able to make that work. Yeah. So it would be effectively where the footpath runs alongside the main pitch. There's, I don't know, Paul and Ian
Which
seem to
footpath
think.
is that along the pitch?
You know the main
Is there a
pitch?
footpath, an actual footpath?
Well, it's just a
It's
worn,
right of way.
where the grass is worn away really. Leading up to Snipe Meadow, the beginning of Snipe Meadow, the boardwalk.
But there's a footpath through to the Riverside Walk, isn't there? It is a right of way there. That's where you pick up the footpaths from Cottesstock as you go out.
Oh, that bit there,
That way,
yeah.
Not anywhere else on that.
So it was somewhere there. I can't remember really where we got to with who was going to be talking to the rugby club about doing
I think
that.
Paul was going to do it,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
I
Because
think
he's
so.
with them quite a lot anyway.
So that would be the biggest part of the Queen's Canopy or whatever it's called, I think, to try to get them there.
Yeah, I was just thinking we could improve Philip Rose's job done then. Well,
I don't think it's a quote.
he's already paid for decent species and good sized trees they are already.
Where's he put those? Or where's he
In the
put those?
fields by the river.
What the?
Down by me, if you come down.
Oh, I see. Right. Yes.
And you
Yeah.
go over through the stile,
Yeah.
to the meadow, the
Yeah.
water meadows. He's planted some stands of mature trees already.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because he wants it to be used as a community public space. He's happy that people walk their dogs there and go running and
That's nice.
stuff. Totally happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we had quite a lot of individual tree work that you wanted us to look at, didn't you?
Did you have you approved the? Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
The signage, the wildflower signage as well, the.
Oh, okay, so O2, we're okay with the wildflowers, go ahead with that. And then, so, yeah, and in order to let people understand that the wildflowers is a project rather than just an accident, it's suggested that we have this signage, which wasn't a lot of money
129.
to put those up and.
Just like another information board, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Telling people
We
exactly
just
what.
need, I'm not, need to be just careful that not all open spaces become a massive signs. So it feels that there was this thing about putting up these land managed by or land owned by Andor Town Council things as well, and we agreed some locations for that. You know, on top of that, we're now saying, well, you know, we'll put up some wildflower signage, you know, so just need to be a little bit careful that we don't just become a massive plastic sign.
If we do, we'll have everybody ringing up complaining about things non-stop, I'll warn you. Once they know who owns it, then
Yeah, no, that is, it is quite a nice idea, and but to me, the point as much as anything is, where there isn't one of those signs, Town Council doesn't own it,
Yeah.
so please go elsewhere.
No, I think that's the main reason for doing it, isn't it? So are we approving
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that we do, it's a small amount of money, and I think tells
yes,
people what we're doing.
So
And then the
Barb's
site
second.
meadow moths, to discuss and approve a proposal from the Snipe Meadow Warden to hold a moth breakfast. Well, you don't eat moths, don't worry. We don't eat
It's a lovely
moths.
idea.
Moth traps set overnight and the public
Absolutely
turn up
great.
next morning for breakfast to look. Yeah.
As long as they will be absolutely fine.
They are. He's
They will
a proper enthusiast. Yeah.
I think it's great.
It is. And I must admit, I always thought moths were just those horrible brown hairy things, but some of the moths I've seen are just absolutely beautiful. Yes, it's fascinating. I know, absolutely fascinating. So I think it's brilliant. So are we approving that? Yeah.
Downright encourage.
So Liz proposed a seconder.
Me,
Oh, Val, yeah.
We're definitely in
that. Okay, brilliant.
Thank you. So for 2163, okay, so there's lots of tree recommendations here. Do you want to go through them all, people, or do you want to say that our walk round, where we discussed, I think, all of these with Lisa and Nobby?
Yeah.
Apart from, let's not go as far as 61 and 305.
Yeah.
But 1, 2, 3 and 4, mostly it was obvious that the work, you know, it just needs doing. The trees need looking after.
No.
I suppose, does this include the one in the cemetery?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you haven't been to the cemetery and seen that enormous conifer that's growing sort of in the middle and overwhelming some of the graves, it's worth going because it is quite a sight.
yeah, let's reduce it.
So, I mean, that was the only one that is potentially a little bit controversial to do a lot of work clearing that. Everything else was just, you know, you've got to do
Straightforward
it.
tree husbandry.
Essentially, it's a cemetery and it's there for the graves. So I think where a tree has become a nuisance, then it does seem appropriate to do quite radical work.
And
on
we're not
that.
removing it, we're
No.
just managing it so that people can get to their grave spaces and do what they need to do.
What's the new headstone about?
This lady has traced, these are relatives that she's traced through her family history.
Right.
And they're currently, we don't think there's a gravestone there, but we can't actually tell
Oh, I
because we can't
see.
get far
As
enough
long as
into
it
the tree.
doesn't come with those awful grass chippings.
No, it's just a straightforward headstone that she
Just
wants. I mean,
those two.
they have to send the design to me anyway for approval. So, yeah, and they just want to do a new headstone for some
Yeah,
family
fine.
members, long distance family members. So Liz, you're proposing we agree all of those costs. Seconder, please.
That's 1, 2, 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Please, and then 5, we encourage the continued conversation at the rugby club. yeah?
Yeah,
And those ones at, well, I call it Rockingham Hills, I don't quite know what it
Yeah.
was. And then if there's others, we'll need to just have a look again,
Yeah.
just to make sure. that-
Well, I put on here, maybe defer to the next fully attended estates meeting.
Yeah, so there's those ones that could be got on with, the work can all be got on with.
Yeah, okay.
And thank you very much for the way that you present it, where you tell me, or us, what we've spent so far,
Yeah.
because that makes it, I don't have to actually go back to that original spreadsheet and work it out, so thank you for that. So 64 projects workshop, nothing. 65 EV charging points, it's still nothing really, isn't it?
Yeah.
St Peter's Church, just tell us if you wouldn't mind, Lisa, where we are with that.
Emma
It's
still hasn't been
thing, isn't it?
contacted. I think there's still some wrangling going on with the insurance company, so it's kind of been taken out of our hands, because everybody who's been consulted on it is happy for it to go ahead. I've got a feeling she might chase it again tomorrow.
But we've got this topographical.
Oh, this is for the other bit. So
Yeah.
a
Oh, I
while,
see, they're separate things on.
yeah, a
Right.
while I'm talking about the North Street area still hasn't been repaired, but it's all been okay, so it should be soon. And then as a result of that damage, the church had actually commissioned a survey, not just on that portion of the wall, but that whole section of the wall that runs along North Street all the way up to the bus stop. So that's already got a report on it. Roy a while ago reported on damage that he was concerned about on the New Street end, and then also Nobby's noticed a few places he thinks just need repointing along the boundary with Philip Rose's. So I said to Emma, while we've got this chap around doing this survey, should we find out how much he would charge us to do a full structural survey on the rest of the wall, so we know what we're dealing with and what repairs need doing. And that's his quote that's come in, because I knew it would be an expensive quote because it is such a detailed report that he does. So it's to approve cost of £650 for him to complete the survey on the remaining parts of the wall at St Peter's Church.
I would like to suggest that we do
I'd second that.
lots of safety elements. about
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. And
It's
also
got to be done
to
sometime.
know, what your future liabilities are,
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
honestly.
Yeah,
Then we can budget, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appropriately in the future, so
okay,
money well spent, I think.
brilliant, thank you.
67, approve the reburial of ashes, if you wouldn't mind explaining why that's with us, please.
Yeah, I didn't realise, because I knew that St Peter's was a closed churchyard since the late 1800s, but I had a query from a lady who's just recently buried her mother in Elmwood Cemetery, and she's applying to have her father's ashes exhumed from St Peter's so they can be reburied with her mother. Apparently St Peter's Church and that end of it are all happy, but as part of the form she has to approach the new burial authority to ask permission for this to happen. So as far as I'm aware, all that's got to happen is that we are happy for that to happen. So it's just like really different circumstances, but a normal burial or interment of ashes, to be fair. But Emma said it's best if we actually do put it on estates, just to make sure everyone's happy.
Then we've got it minuted, in case there's any kind of repercussions.
Future generations.
So we're all happy
Yes,
Yeah.
happy to approve that, thank you. To approve adding the option for a resident to install a memorial. Yeah, this was something that came up when we were looking round the cemetery. There are quite a lot of benches there already, but I think they saw it as a possible income generator. That we literally encourage people to put in memorial benches.
Really?
I
How
mean,
many
different at
materials?
best. And there's a lot there already,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Well, don't forget
Don't
we're going to be
forget.
expanding the cemetery.
Right,
So it might be a good idea to
Yes.
delay it
yes.
until the new cemetery
Yeah.
is
Yes.
sorted out.
I think that's an excellent compromise, Val, thank you very much. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
We'll look at it again when we have more space. Certainly the provision of seating seemed completely adequate to me.
Well, I think it would be quite desirable in a way.
Yeah.
Then we know that it's going to be.
There's a perfect opportunity, good,
Okay,
thank you.
perfect.
Jones Strong Centre, 68, nothing.
No.
69, the markets, I don't think there was anything on the report that we need to concern ourselves with.
No, they all seem to be getting on okay at the moment, which is good.
Yeah, that's nice. The June Action Plan and Progress Report. Anything on there that's bothering you, Lisa, that you need our
No, I
guidance on?
think most of it was addressed at the time. No, yeah, no, it's all in hand.
I didn't think there was anything that I was worried, everything's been done according to our instruction, it seemed to me, so. So that is received, thank you. 71, Paul, anything from you
Yeah,
additional?
I'm just looking at the Oundle and surrounding villages chatter
Oh,
Facebook page.
that's not interesting enough.
No, it's just that something's popped up about the cemetery.
Oh, I saw this.
About what?
The cemetery, so 2 hours ago, I won't say anything, but it's there. Where some people have gone down to the cemetery and are a bit upset about the state. And they've taken their own, they've done a little bit of work themselves. The only reason I say it is that obviously it's attracting comments, which is absolutely fine. I don't know whether there should be some sort of official kind of OTC comments.
Yeah, my partner read that out to me while I was eating my dinner.
So it's not massively negative about anything, it's just
No.
people get very clearly very sensitive about that space, as I do. I don't want it to be Arlington, but I don't want it to be,
No,
you know, I want it to be a happy mix of the
Yeah.
two. It's just that things like that, they probably needs to be managed.
It's strange because when we were down there the other week, it looked immaculate, didn't it?
I thought it was a
It looked
lovely
really
space
lovely,
and I'd
yeah.
never been there before, so, but I think you and Nobby did say that people are taking it upon themselves to do a little bit of tidying up in particular areas.
It's what we're supposed to
We've
do.
always wanted people to do.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
So
in
perhaps
terms
our
of
response is-
conditions of having a plot, they are
They're
responsible
supposed to
for
look
their
after
plot.
Yeah.
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 And I won't do anything tonight, but we'll probably answer it tomorrow.
I think it's less about the space and more about the message.
Yeah.
Because
So we encourage people to be part of maintaining
Yeah.
as
space.
people do, don't they?
If you have a specific query, contact the council and we'll be happy to look into it.
You see, this is where it gets difficult with the wildflower areas because there's a certain area that we've always left, and it will always encourage people who aren't very happy about it. Say it looks messy, so you can't win sometimes. You're keeping some people happy, but other people don't like it. So
We had it in the churchyard,
Yeah.
had infinitum.
yeah,
I
They
think
can join the council, that's always my answer.
Mm.
We've got
But some of
space
them
on the
have.
council.
You still get conflicts of
And then they can-
opinion.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
so. The only other one was,
Yeah.
sorry, Chair,
No.
there was a bit of a rigmarole about the farmers market. I seem to remember a couple of markets ago, was there? Some bit of argy-bargy with some of the stalls.
yeah,
Is that all sort of resolved now?
yeah. That's why I said they seem to be getting on all right at the moment. Yeah,
And I think the Thursday market was very thin.
Yeah.
But I think it does go through that through June summer, doesn't it?
yeah. And unfortunately, we've lost a couple of the
wouldn't
long-standing.
mind- It's not for
stalls.
now, but I wouldn't mind looking at, once we come in through this situation that we're
Yeah,
hopefully coming out and probably looking at that Thursday market again. Just to see, because it could be busier, I would say, than it perhaps has been.
well, I know.
Not enough parking.
I tell you what, the stalwarts he made, the fruit and veg guy, he there always said he does very well.
Mm.
So I think if, just to have a review, just
Yeah,
have a quick look at it.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's all
yeah.
for me, though, Chair.
Thank you. Val?
I'm concerned about the fact it was brought to my attention by a previous councillor that the food festival charged £5 a car to park on our,
That's what, if you look in the town events on the
and I
report,
see it's on there as well.
and also the other complaint that we got, and I myself didn't know, and I'd been speaking to Rowan. I trotted down there with my dog, and it was a no dogs policy, and there was a couple of people that commented on Oundle Chat that somebody had driven from Northampton to come to it with their family and their dog, and I think ended up just turning around and going back because it was a hot day, so you couldn't leave your dog anywhere in the car. So yeah, when I speak to Rowan, I will ask why they
We
were
should be
charging.
having that £5 each car.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I'll tell you what we saw, Val, as we walked through the wreck, where we sort of skirted round it. How I found out was we saw two cars pull in and then pull out and go back out again. And I was further ahead with the dog, and I was like, what's that about then? And my partner had heard, and he said they're charging £5 for those two people who just said, I'm not paying £5.
That is absolutely, you know what, all that does is it puts a bad taint on something that normally is a fantastic event.
Yeah, and we didn't charge them. We, you know, when it was going to be in the marketplace, we'd waived the fee, hadn't we, because of
they had free
circumstances.
parking in
Yes.
all our car parks.
Yeah.
They had the wreck.
Yeah.
And they had the cheek. I think it's appalling, really.
So I will find out why.
think
I know they're a
we should
charity and they
have
need to
money.
make money, but
We should definitely have a cup.
We should have the money.
Sorry, Lisa, that does seem quite a controversial thing, and so I just need to have a bit of better understanding of what it is you think you're going to go away and do.
but I just asked for an explanation why they charged and why we weren't told about it in the first place when we approved
Why
them.
is the right question, though?
It isn't the right question.
I'm not sure
I mean, I suppose-
why is the right question. Did they, should
not a question.
they not have sought our permission?
Totally.
Absolutely.
I think a little bit more strongly worded than, can you tell us why you did it?
Mm.
Yes.
Kind of,
Yes.
we imply that we think they did the wrong thing.
Mm.
Should you not have sought our permission, and we're disappointed by some of the negative comments that will come the way of Oundle Town Council?
Because it will be under our name.
It
Yeah.
us that's criticised, absolutely.
Happy to review that with you or anybody else who wants to be involved before it goes. But I think a little bit more than, oh, by the way, why did you do that?
Okay.
Without this, I mean, I'm not sure yet
I think
about
it's,
demanding the
can
money
I
back.
remind you that you hadn't sought permission?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something along, yeah, I think the word permission somewhere needs to be in it, don't you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, that was it.
Agreement.
I mean,
And
when
there was
the fair
nothing-
rocking up without asking permission to go on the land of the
Sorry,
when the fair comes to town and people, you know, when people
they
use our
rent,
land,
they pay us.
They
it
charge.
becomes a council
Yeah.
decision, it literally comes to full council
I
to
think-
approve
Thank you,
the
thank you.
permission.
I think the very least that we could suggest is that they therefore pay us at least the rent for the rent.
Or we make a grand gesture to the town.
Yeah, to the rent.
Shall we leave it with them at the moment to see what they come back with,
Yeah.
and then we'll just, depending on that.
Who are they, just out of interest?
The
It
festival,
was Oundle
Creative-
Festival, what the Creative Oundle now it's called,
Ah.
yeah.
Rowan works round the school.
Downright cheeky. I'm so glad you brought that to my attention.
I must admit, that's what I thought when I found out. I did think that.
Absolutely shocked. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, do not lose sight. Thank you so much for coming to our reduced numbers, that you made it possible.
Mm.
I will sign these minutes now, Lisa.
Brilliant, thank you.
What do you like, a full signature on every page, or?
Yeah, full signature and then do the signature and date on the last page. Right.
Well chaired, Chair. See you all soon.
Yes, take care, see you again.
Good night.
Bye.
Excellent.